predicting what the Bucs are going to do over the course of the next week as we head into free agency. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this WTSP edition of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. He is Evan Klosky at eKlosky WTSP. We are your credentialed members of the media covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, of course, you can check out everything that Evan is doing over on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10tampabay.com. The show is here with you every Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. An interesting little nugget about running back Rachaad White. That is coming up later in the show. But seeing as how this is the last time that, Evan, you will be here before the negotiating window opens up, because I refuse to say legal tampering because that's an oxymoron and it's stupid. But this essentially boils down to a full crystal ball episode. We are going to go through some of these Buccaneers free agents, and Evan, you're going to tell us whether they stay, whether they go, and what these deals are going to look like. Essentially, Jason Light gets to watch this episode, and you're going to do all the work for him. It's going to be super simple.
I'm sure he appreciates that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he just gets to kick back, watch the show for a half an hour, and be like, all right, my job here is done heading into free agency. I know who we're keeping and how much we're spending. But we're going to start with the big NFL news of the day, and that is that your New York Jets have released wide receiver Davante Adams. And my question is, how is that going to affect Chris Godwin's market, where on yesterday's show, I talked about him being the top receiver in free agency after T. Higgins was tagged. Now, one could pretty easily make the argument that Adams is the biggest fish in that free agent pond. So what does this move do to Godwin's market value?
First off, we're going to have to wait for the next break, but you can see the world around me got pretty dark. I'm going to have to fix that somehow. Two, I don't know if it affects it that much.
For what the Bucs are.
Yeah, that's a good point. Didn't think about that. But I don't think the Davante Adams stuff really affects what Tampa Bay wants to do or the Chris Godwin market. I think it allows teams to possibly pivot off of Godwin, but I think the general consensus around the league is that Godwin is going to be back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers some way, somehow. They'll figure it out. So I don't know if there's many teams out there saying, hey, I got to make Chris Godwin this huge priority and shovel him a bunch of money, because you got to understand from another team's perspective, they would, and again, this has nothing to do with the character, the player, what he's able to produce. Man, you cannot give this guy any more green flags of just who Chris Godwin is and what he's about and how that all functions. But, another team has to objectively say this is a dude who's injury prone, and I can't imagine there's a team out there that's going to go so far across the line of what Godwin is searching for to the point that the Buccaneers would not make it worth his while to just stay. And there's a little bit of an element here of where Godwin has to maybe see what the market tells him, search around. I know that was going to be what the Buccaneers were maybe going to do with Mike Evans and allow him to see what the world is telling him he's worth. And then they were able to figure it out before that happened. I remember Jason Light jumping on a plane to finish that deal off because Mike said, you know what, I just want to get this done. Godwin Godwin's probably in the mid-20s with what his asking price is. And I would imagine the Buccaneers are not too far away from the mid-teens of what they're looking for in Godwin. So we got two extremes there. You would wonder if they can just come together and form a marriage around 18 to 20, somewhere in that range. Divs get creative, but that's probably what I would be thinking how this is going to all unfold.
Something that you mentioned that I've heard, some of the insiders have texted me. I've gotten DMs on Twitter. I've seen people say it in the comments, was the notion that Chris Godwin is injury prone. And that always makes me cringe because we're talking about a free agent market where T. Higgins was expected to get like $30 million a year. And the dude hasn't played a full season since his rookie year. Godwin has two catastrophic, unfortunate injuries. And that's it. Like, to me, that's not a guy that's injury prone. That's a guy that had some bad luck. So it always makes me wonder how other teams view it. Because
I wouldn't necessarily say that he's injury, whether we say injury prone or not. The fact is he's had two significant injuries.
Yeah.
And whether, look, I'm not the one writing the checks, right? So do I believe in Chris Godwin? Absolutely. Does Jason? Absolutely. But when they crunch numbers and they look at things as objectively as possible, when it spits out a number, it tells them somebody who did this, factoring in the injuries, which also limits the production, is worth this much. And it's on the player to say, well, if I didn't get injured, I'm worth this much. And that's where the argument, that's where you compromise and you debate and you try to find a medium ground. It's tough to just ignore that he's had two really bad injuries. So that's part of the equation, and we can call it whatever we want to call it, but that's just the reality.
All right. Well, with all of that said, Evan Klosky, make the call. Chris Godwin, does he stay? Does he go? And what's the contract look like for Godwin in 2025?
Yeah, I think he's going to stay. And my assumption is it will not be too far away from what the Mike Evans deal situation was. As I said, I mean, I'm looking around 18 to 20 is probably the compromise area. But at this point, you would tell Chris maybe 2+1, try to get on the Lavonte David, Rondé Barber, Mike Evans sort of plan of let's get a deal here and then start playing it year by year.
All right. Well, you heard it here. Evan Klosky guarantees that Chris Godwin returns. And if he doesn't, you can direct all of your anger towards him at eKlosky.
If you're listening to this show, you know that James is blowing a ton of smoke and never to listen to him. So out there, I don't even have to tell you,
How are you going to tell people to not listen to me when the entire point of doing this is for people to listen to me? Come on, Evan. Let's get it together. All right.
Well, when you stray away from the Buccaneers talk, I should say, like there's got to be an on-off switch. It's like, oh, James is talking about the Bucs. I'm going to listen. Oh, James is talking that smack. I'm gonna turn him down. Like that's just the way it goes.
Nah, I mean, the smack is why half the people tune in anyway. All right, some more pending Bucs free agents still to talk about. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You've probably heard of Chewy. They really do have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Whether you're shopping for food, treats, or even pet health care, Chewy makes it fast, easy, and affordable. With over 100,000 products from all of your favorite brands, Chewy has everything your pet needs, from food and treats to toys, beds, and grooming. And it's not just for dogs and cats. They've got supplies for birds, fish, reptiles, and small pets too. Chewy also makes it easy to manage your pet's health with prescriptions, telehealth vet visits, and even in-person vet clinics rolling out nationwide. Auto Ship is a game changer. You can set up automatic deliveries for food, treats, or any essentials so you never run out. You can easily change or cancel it anytime. I've been using Chewy for years. Ever since we got my big, lovable goofball Layla back in 2020, we never have to worry about remembering to pick up her food or her favorite treats from the store because Chewy has got us covered each and every month. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewy.com or clicking the link in the description. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping by clicking the link in the description. Minimum purchase required, new customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. Now that the season is over, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find the Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And just to go back to the last segment real quick, you've got my own listeners and viewers talking smack to me now, getting tagged in Ohio State crap on Twitter. Like, let's just stop that right now.
Yes, I mean,
talking to you, Paul.
Look, I think all you out there understand that there's one way to go about this, and I take back everything that I said about not listening to James. You should really listen and make fun of him. That's really the learning point here. So, I'm glad that we were able to kind of regroup and understand what our purpose is, and that's to really crap talk you as much as possible.
Yeah, well, as the guy whose concert I went to on Thursday that got canceled as I was standing outside the arena, what goes around comes around. In Indianapolis last week, Josina Anderson said that the Bucs have been in contact with Lavonte David. They want to bring him back, but they are willing to give him as much time as it takes. Meanwhile, other teams are in touch with Lavonte David's representatives, trying to gauge his personal interest in potentially playing elsewhere. So, Evan, Lavonte David, is he staying? Is he going? How much time can the Bucs really give him here, knowing that if he does leave, now you have to sign and or draft two linebackers? Like, I realize giving him, he's earned that time. He's earned that respect. But at the same time, still need to kind of get this rolling. So how much time are they willing to give him? And does he stay or does he maybe explore what else is out there?
If Lavonte does not retire, I have a really, really, really tough time imagining Lavante's going to play in another jersey. If he was going to do that, he would have done that a couple of years ago when he had the chance and he decided to come back. So when he made that decision back then, I think it was pretty much set in his mind, I'm sticking with the Bucs until the very end. So I don't think fans have to worry about that. I would imagine Lavonte is going to come to a decision. Hopefully the next time that we're talking, we have an answer within the next week. If not, that's okay. The Buccaneers cannot be going into this offseason anyway saying, oh, yeah, we got Lavonte, we got Servassier, like we're good. Like they need to bring in players anyway. And I'm a big Servassier Dennis fan, but I would really like him to be a depth piece because I don't trust his injury history. So I have to prepare for the worst case scenario, but I also see a role for him as well. So to me, they still got to bring in a legit dude who can start day one for them in free agency. I've said Dre Greenlaw is my guy in this department. I stick with it. And then if Lavonte comes back, you got those two, which is one hell of a linebacker core. And if Lavonte doesn't, you can just shift Servassier into a starting role. They're going to have to draft another guy anyway. So, worst case scenario, I don't think they're going to have to wait that long. Let me put that out there again. But if they did want to give Lavonte the respect, and if Lavonte did wait longer than free agency and then decide to come back, they can make it work anyway. It is not a bad thing to have a lot of depth. And if Lavante's coming back, I don't think he's going to be clamoring for like $8 million here. So, they'll make it work. And there's always money in the banana stand for Levante David.
All right, well then make the call. Levante David, stay, go, retire, or if he stays, what's the contract looking like?
Levante is going to stay, and I haven't necessarily looked into what his money would be because I just figure they'll figure. I don't know, what is it going to be, like $4-ish million, something around there. 3.5, 4.5, I don't know, something like that. I got to look more into that, to be honest. But I think he stays, and we get Levante for another year, especially considering I think that Levante understands that this team isn't far away. So him coming back is not for naught, right? He's got something to pursue, and he can also talk with someone like Shaq Barrett, right? He retired, and man, most of the way through that season, Shaq was like, I miss it. Now he wants to keep going. So,
all right. Well, the next big one up is Ben Bredeson. He played extremely well last year, and I know the Bucs like him. They'd love to have him back. You want to have that continuity along the offensive line. So, Bredeson, does he stay or go? What's the price tag going to be on his services?
Not 100% certain on his price tag. He's the one I haven't necessarily pegged down. It's been very quiet on all fronts regarding Bredeson, but I do lean towards him staying, considering that the team is valuing continuity and all that entails. So I will go with him staying, and I'm not even going to blow smoke up your guys' butt. I got to dig more into his contract. I really do. It's tough because I need to understand the market, what's out there for him, and the year. Like I don't think they're going to do. If they're going to bring him back, is it going to be a 1-year sort of deal? Is it going to be 2? I don't know. So, but my prediction is he'll be back.
All right, well, let's do a little rapid fire here because we're not gonna go this in depth on every single free agent. I think those are the top 3 internal free agents for the Buccaneers. You're talking about 3 key starters at 3 key positions. But for these guys, you can just say stay or go. And then if you have an idea as to how much you think they might get, you can throw the money out there. You can throw out years on a deal or whatever. But let's run down the list real quick. Anthony Nelson.
He will go.
He will go. All right. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka.
Gone.
Greg Gaines.
Gone.
Shaq Barrett.
Maybe.
Oh, come on.
I'll say stay.
Okay. All right. If
Not
he plays,
confident.
he stays. That would be my opinion on it. He left once, retired, came out of retirement, came back to the Bucs. So yeah, I would say if he plays, he stays. William Golston.
Retires.
Okay. Justin School.
The Bucs, I think, would love to have him stay. The hope would be for School to stay. I don't know if another team's going to give him more money. So I'll say gone, but not because the Bucs don't want him.
Okay. See, and I think maybe if he's going to be a backup for somewhere, he would just stay in Tampa. I don't know if anybody brings him in to be a starter, but who knows? I could see that.
You don't know
Liam
that
Cohen move.
That's right. Exactly. Like Jacksonville needs to really ramp up their line play. And you talk to anybody on that offensive line, they all say School is a dude that they lean on. Like this man, it was a really an unsung veteran presence. Graham Barton, Tristan Wirfs, Bredeson, like all of them talked about School. So if I'm Liam Cohen and I'm noticing that this dude has this amount of respect from everybody, seems like a guy that I want to bring in and willing to pay a little bit more for him. And now maybe he doesn't start, but that's a dude that I would want to have in my locker room. So again, I think that there's some value for School on the open market, and we just got to see what kind of moves the Bucs make, whether they can bring him back. So again, do the Bucs want him? Yes. Do I think that another team might try to steer him away? I feel like they might.
Yeah, I feel like Jacksonville is where we're going to see Robert Hainsey ends up.
Yeah.
Who is not on the rapid fire list because he already said that he's gone.
Yeah, right.
About that. He is Audi 5000. All right, Bryce Hall.
Stay. Why not?
Okay.
For a cheap deal.
Yeah, I mean, we really didn't get a chance to see him. They could have used him for sure. And I don't know. I kind of feel like Bryce Hall is the more likely guy to stay over Tavierre Thomas.
I mean, Thomas is a special teams guy. So I like Tavierre, but, you know, he's not a guy that I want to see out there on the defense. I want to see him on special teams. That's it. That was always supposed to be his main purpose. So, but Bryce, you know, if you want to bring him back as your fourth cornerback or something on a really, really cheap deal while he's kind of getting back to full strength, why not? I mean, he's not going to cost you much.
All right, and then the last one, Mike Edwards.
I'm going to lean towards man. There's so many what-if statements with this. Okay, I'm going to go with yes for now. And the tiebreaker that I'm using is because Tabo said he wants some ball hawks. And if there's one ball hawk that I know, it's Mike Edwards. So don't hold me to these. Opinions can change based on moves. But I'll just say because of that comment, why not have him back? He's not going to cost much. And, you're comfortable with him. So as long as he's not the guy starting day one, we're all good there.
All right. Well, one NFL analyst left Indianapolis believing that the Bucs might be souring on Rachaad White. That is next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Wrapping things up here on a WTSP edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. And Matthew Berry dropped his annual Interesting Things I Heard at the Combine column over at NBC Sports. And he had one that Bucs fans will certainly be interested in. And that is that he believes Rachaad White could be one player with kind of the most to prove this year. So Matthew Berry said, quote, "Perhaps the most interesting part of the Tampa Bay running back discussion was about Sean Tucker. He has the talent to be a number one running back in this league," said a team source. "The issue is just that he's stuck behind Bucky Irving." Reading between the lines of the conversation, I came away thinking they love Irving, they love Tucker, and aren't as enthusiastic about Rachaad White. I bet Tucker overtakes White for the running back 2 role sooner than later, end quote. So, Evan, do you see Rachaad falling out of favor with the Bucs that much this upcoming season? Or do you think this is more of, a team source trying to hype up one of their players that had some flashes last season, just not a lot of opportunity? Or is this maybe setting up to move Rachaad in some type of deal?
I don't think this is anything like crazy to say. Let's talk about the last month of action, right? There was a game against the Chargers where Rachaad had 15 carries. He had 2 targets. So 2 catches. And 2 targets. He had 17 touches. Dallas, he had 3 carries. Then 7 receptions, went down to 10 touches. Carolina, 6 carries, 1 reception, 7 touches. Against the Saints, squadouche. And then against Washington in the playoffs, 1 carry, 2 receptions. And then at the end there, he lost his starting job. So I don't think it's a crazy statement for someone to say, "Oh, Rachaad White has lost favor." Yeah, he has. The last month of the year, we saw it. Like in the statistics, in the usage, they turned it over to Bucky Irving. We know that Bucky Irving is the bell cow now, or at least a starter. So what is Rachaad White? He's on the last year of his deal. He is exceptional in pass pro. Sean Tucker is not good in pass pro. Why is Sean Tucker not playing as much? Because he's not good in pass pro. If there was the ability for Sean Tucker to be better in pass pro, he would have been the 2 a long time ago. But that's why Rachaad has been getting that. Also, Rashaad's got great hands for a running back. There are things that Rachaad is very good at. It is very clear after 3 years, he does not have the ability in the rushing game like some others, especially when you see Bucky Irving doing what he's doing. Now, when the Bucs moved to more of a gap scheme run system, that helped Rachaad White dramatically. Wasn't a good zone runner, better in gap. He's not as good as Bucky. And it was very clear at the end of the season, they said, who are our best players? We got to put them on the field. And Bucky was clearly one of them that they wanted to roll with. I did find it interesting that Rashaad's usage just cratered in the last month. And who knows what that could signal. The Bucs, I think the Bucs only used one interview. I forget if it was formal or informal on Cam Scadaboo.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's out of the question. And so, some stuff I've heard is like, oh, the Bucs aren't worried about running back. They haven't talked with anybody. It seems like they're going to come and go, maybe grab someone undrafted free agent. I'm not 100% sure on that. This is such a good running back class. Jason Light said it himself. Why would you say, well, I guess we don't need one? Doesn't make any sense to me. So if Rachaad White is on and this isn't my opinion, right, about Rachaad. So this is just me reading the tea leaves. Rachaad seeded work at the end of last year at the most critical point. Bucky is clearly the top running back entering next season. We all like Sean Tucker, but he's got a hole there as pass pro. Can the Bucs grab someone on the cheap who they really like at running back, who can provide them a little bit more in pass pro and maybe cycle out of Rachaad, if not after the year, maybe entering the year, or maybe you move on from Rachaad. I don't know. But I don't think it would be good process to pass on a great, exceptional running back draft where it is so deep and you can get someone with a late round pick. They don't have to necessarily use the third or fourth rounder on a running back. They can get someone really good, 5, 6, 7, or whatever their picks are. I'm just saying late in the day 3. I wouldn't signal that the Bucs are out of the RB hunt because they haven't talked with anybody. So that's just my if we're having a discussion of the draft and they take a running back, I'm not going to be surprised. I'm telling you that right now. So I will be surprised if it's day 2 earlier, but I won't be surprised if day 3 they come in with a running back that they like.
Yeah, no formal interviews with any of the running backs at the Combine. They had informal interviews with Trayvon Henderson, Cam Scadaboo, Omarion Hampton, Bashal Tootin, Woody Marks, and Ulysses Bentley. So shout out to Pewter Report for that. And then, the last thing that I'll mention here is what Matthew Berry had to say about Bucky Irving. And he said, while we were talking about teams that love their running backs, I'm going to tell my daughters that when they grow up, they need to find someone that looks at them the way Tampa Bay looks at Bucky Irving. Bucs cannot stop raving about the kid. He's going to be a true alpha RB1 next year. It's going to be interesting to see how this running back situation plays out. I talked about a mock draft on Monday where this mock draft had the Bucs taking a running back in, I think it was the 5th round, and I didn't care for it. I did not like it. I didn't want them to take one there, but it also depends on how things start going next week. When we start to see these free agents getting signed and where the holes are going to be, okay, now I could be a little bit more okay with the Bucs going with a running back on day 3. Definitely not in the first 2 days, but even if Scatterbo's sitting there, I wouldn't love it, depending on what else they've already done. It's about the collective, Evan. It's about the picture as a whole, not the individual pieces.
But this Scatterbo one's interesting. I don't know if they're going to be able to get him, because I imagine someone's going to fall in love with that guy.
I think he's second round.
Yeah. But man, when you think about him, you got to think about him more than just a running back. He does so much. So that's, I think, when we see the evolution of football, that's just kind of where we're heading, is that you got to stop, not you, but like when we look at players like a Tyler Warren or whatever, when you have these players who can play in multiple spots, I mean, that's really when you start kind of screwing up some defenses even more. So those are tough to find, and it looks like, and Cam's got that dog in him, and you can't teach that. So, but we'll get more into that as we get into April.
All right, Evan, what do we have going on over on 10 Tampa Bay, the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app, and 10tampabay.com, outside of the fact that the Tampa Bay Lightning are about to make a blockbuster trade?
Yeah, I mean, trade deadline is at the end of this week. We're expecting Julien Brisebois to do something, because he always does something. So I'm expecting a howitzer from him, because that's usually how he does his business. So yeah, make sure 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com, 10 Tampa Bay Plus. You can stream with us, all that good stuff. But on top of that, end of this month, we got Rays opening day. We got Valspar Championship. March Madness is on 10 Tampa Bay. So it's going to be a busy month. Stick it with us, because your boy over here, he's going to Australia in April. So we got to get all this out of the way before that.
Yeah, we're going to have to work out how you're going to record with me in Australia. I don't understand the time difference. But
you might see some David Shealy during that time. That's how we're going to work it out.
He and I will be able to talk Star Wars and wrestling, and we're going to have ourselves a grand old.
You guys need to clear the paint on some wrestling. There's some good drama going on right now. Okay.
That's going to do it for this episode. Please make sure you are checking out everything that Evan is doing over on 10 Tampa Bay, the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app, and 10tampabay.com. Follow along on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, at eCloskey WTSP. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. And of course, make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube with those notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.